Naruto would stand nervously, face to face with three intimidating shinobi, one of whom someone that he hadn't seen not too long ago. Of course, there were many things on Naruto's mind. For one, why was Haku here? Why was he after Kori? Of course, in the heat of the moment, you're often triggered by your flight or fight responses. For Naruto, running would seem to be the best option, but he didn't feel like he had much of a choice. He would slowly back away from the door as Kori would approach behind him, asking what could have kept him so long. Of course, she too was surprised by the reaction of seeing Haku standing there. Kisame and Itachi would usher for the children to step into the halls. Even for Kori, as hot-blooded as she could act, she knew that now wasn't the time to let her emotions get the better of her. As both she and Naruto stood in the hall, with the trio standing no more than 10 or 15 feet away, they had to make their demands very clear. They had only come for Kori. If she were willing to comply and not put up a fight, then things could be cordial. Of course, Naruto would not want to give in to Haku's demands, not wanting to give up a comrade or a friend, even in the face of such odds. Haku, knowing that, unfortunately, Naruto would not come to see reason, the best thing he could do was eliminate him from the equation. The ire of his fury turned directly towards Kori. She had been the one to kill Zabuza in the Land of Waves. In a sense, this was repaying an eye for an eye. She took the life of someone that was precious to him, and as a result, it was only fair that her life be given in consequence. Of course, as they conversed in the halls, suddenly, on the other side, Sasuke, followed by Tatsu, would emerge with the other members of Team 7. Sasuke's eyes were linked on Itachi, and for Tatsu, she backed up her new and former comrades, as all four children stood together. Kisame would grin as he grabbed hold of the large wrapped blade on his back, believing that things were about to get interesting. Itachi barely gave Sasuke any attention, but Sasuke truly didn't care. Immediately, he charged for the lightning-style thunderclap arrow, while Haku would create an ice-style ice wall. In the midst of the diversion, Naruto would use his wood release to create a barrier between both sides, as Kori would burn down one of the walls of the hotel, creating an opening for the children to escape out into the streets. They knew that fighting amongst the civilians would be pointless, so they tried to find as secluded of an area as they could get to. The Akatsuki trio would soon be on their pursuit, and before long would catch up to them. Itachi was able to see why they had done what they did, and on the inside he had to give them credit, the fact that they could think ahead so quickly. Sasuke would engage with Itachi, while Naruto and Kori would have to take on the likes of Kisame. Tatsu found herself engaged with Haku, the two of them quickly becoming familiar with one another, especially by their skills in the ice release Kekkei Genkai. Haku would use his Sinbon, attempting to strike down and pinpoint the pressure spots of Tatsu. In response, Tatsu would use her katana to block away at each of the Sinbon that came striking at her, as the two ice-release shinobi would engage in a flurry of frozen combat. As for Kori and Naruto, they found themselves being overwhelmed by the might of Kisame Hoshigaki as he used his blade Samehada, the living shark skin. But Samehada was starting to become enthralled, and not just by the presence of Nine-Tails chakra. You could say that Samehada had a strong taste for tailed beast chakra, and as a result, Naruto's influx of wood release, it gave off that potent aura. But that couldn't have been right. There were supposed to be 9-tailed beasts. They knew for a fact that Kori was the 9-tails, and Konoha didn't have any more tailed beasts in their possession. So why was Samehada able to contract the same aura of Biju chakra from Naruto, the same as Kori? Kisame would grin, chuckling at the thought that the hidden leaf were hiding yet another tailed beast. This could prove to be useful information to the organization. In the meantime, high above them in the skies, a battle between brothers, both Sasuke and Itachi, soaring through the air with their black wings, as Sasuke would attempt to strike down at Itachi, using the combination of his mother's war mace along with the short sword given to him by Kakashi. Itachi would match him blow for blow with nothing but a mere kunai at his disposal. In midair, both brothers would use the fireball jutsu, canceling each other out, but Itachi was faster, kicking away at Sasuke and knocking him to the ground. Itachi wanted to dispose of his brother quickly and return to the mission. That was until he said something. Sasuke would tell that he knew about the other Uchiha, Madara or Obito or whoever he was calling himself. Itachi stopped dead in his tracks, turning back to his brother. How could he have known? No, who could have told him? During the night of the Uchiha massacre, Itachi Uchiha was not alone in the destruction of the clan, and yet, the identity of the other assailant, there was no way that Konoha could have known this, and yet somehow Sasuke had gotten hold of that information. Itachi was worried. If the hidden leaf were to find out the truth, then everything he had worked for, it would all be in vain. And yet at the same time, he could tell that by the way that Sasuke moved, he wasn't just fighting on pure revenge. There was an inquisitive look in his Sharingan, almost as if he were trying to figure out something. Itachi had to make a choice. Did he pursue the mission, or did he continue on with the charade? He would turn his attentions back to Sasuke. If Sasuke wanted the truth, then he would have to test him to see if he were worthy of learning such secrets. Itachi was prepared to give Sasuke his full attention. He only said a silent prayer and hoped that his brother could take the brunt of what was to come. In the meantime, Jiraiya had quickly realized that he had been deceived, that the woman who had been keeping him company had been placed under a genjutsu. By the time he returned back to the inn where he had kept the two children, he found destruction, chaos, and missing children. The sounds of battle were off in the distance, and Jiraiya raced to their side quickly. Naruto would attempt to use the wood-style binding jutsu, while Kori would attempt to unleash her great emerald fireball jutsu. The restraints were hardly anything to Kisame as he broke free of them, cutting through the wood with Samehada that seemed to absorb the chakra even further, along with the opening shark mouth of the blade that swallowed up the emerald-infused Nine-Tails chakra fireball jutsu. Kori and Naruto would continue their assault against Kisame, Kori using most of her natural-powered strength, wrapping around the waist of Kisame as she picked him up and attempted to give him a German suplex, putting that strong strength to good use. But Kisame was able to break free of that hold, as he grabbed her by the face and slammed her into the ground. Samehada, using its sharp scales to cut into Corey's abdomen and through her leg, absorbing as much of her Ninetales chakra as it could. You got a lot of power, girlie. But unfortunately for you, my partner Samehada loves Biju chakra, and you have it in spades, as well as you, boy. What are you? Did Konoha keep an extra-tailed beast for themselves? What are you talking about? Naruto would say. Don't try and play dumb with me, kid. You might be able to deceive anyone else, but you can't deceive me and Samehada. You have the power of a tailed beast within you, the same as her. But it's different. It's not like any of the other tailed beasts. So which is it? What are you? Naruto would say nothing as he attempted to use another wood-style jutsu, attempting to create more restraints to hold down Kisame, who was able to fight against them all, as he used the water-style shark bullet jutsu, creating a great shark out of water that lunged straight towards Naruto. Naruto would create a dome of wood, protecting himself from the oncoming water-style jutsu. In the midst of the chaos, Jiraiya would arrive on the back of his warrior Toad. Assessing the situation, Jiraiya would quickly move into action as he engaged with Kisame first. He used the ninja art ninja-style hair needle jizo technique, launching multiple hair-like senbon straight towards Kisame, causing him to back away from the children. As Tatsu engaged with Haku, Jiraiya would then use the Toad-style oil fire bullet jutsu, as he used a combination of his fire style and his oil release. The combined oil and fire shooting directly at the crystal ice mirrors of Haku, burning away at some of the ice, freeing Tatsu to make her next strike and forcing Haku on the defensive. As for Sasuke, his battle with Itachi was not faring so well. Itachi had managed to break his arm, and had even attempted to use his Mangekyo Sharingan of Tsukuyomi, but the boy's mind was far more resilient, though still lacking. Itachi could see that Sasuke was barely holding it together, as Jiraiya came barreling towards him. Itachi would fly away quickly with the other members of the Akatsuki, and it was just then that from out of nowhere, Might Guy would arrive as well, once more, kicking away at Kisame to back up Jiraiya and the children. It was here that Itachi would use this as the opportunity to retreat, noting that they wouldn't be in the best position. If these two were here, more Leaf Shinobi would be on the way, and soon they'd find themselves outnumbered. With that, the Akatsuki would quickly take their leave. Jiraiya would go on the pursuit, but Itachi would use the Amaterasu to create a wall of black flame, deterring them from pursuing any further, as the Akatsuki trio would escape. Jiraiya would assess the situation along with the children. Thankfully, no one was severely harmed, although Corey, even though taking a brunt of damage, the power of the Ninetales was quickly working to heal her of her affliction. Naruto and Sasuke were doing fine for the most part, though Sasuke would have to go back to Konoha to go to the infirmary. And Tatsu had managed to hold her own as well, although now she had more intrigue for this Haku character. He too had the inherited power of the ice release Kekkei Genkai. It meant that they came from the same family lineage. Another piece of her past now brought to light. Sasuke would ask Naruto everything about what had happened. Naruto would give as much in detail as he could, that they were after Corey, specifically the Ninetales. This now confirmed their suspicion. The Akatsuki were now after the tailed beast, which meant that Cory was a target, and more so, a target for Itachi Uchiha. Even still, Cory and Naruto would continue their pursuit of Tsunade with Jiraiya, and shortly after would find her. Unlike in the original timeline, Tsunade would not be approached by a deal with Orochimaru, mainly because Orochimaru would be dead in this timeline, though that doesn't mean that persuading her to become Hokage would be an easy feat. No, not at all. Tsunade would still be grief-stricken by the death of her brother and her former lover in Dan, and it would take a lot of convincing for her to want to return back to the Leaf Village. But she did take an interest in Cory of all people, because of her monstrous strength. She believed that if the girl had trained to her full capacity, then there was nothing that she couldn't achieve. Of course, that would be a lot easier said than done. Just because she saw potential in the young girl, it didn't mean that she had interest in getting back into the life of a ninja. She enjoyed her life of little to no responsibility, of gambling and drinking her debts away. Of course, she was also moved by the death of their master, Hiruzen, the third Hokage, learning of how he had defeated Orochimaru. This left Tsunade with much to consider, and also meeting Naruto, the son of Minato and Kushina. It brought a lot of old feelings back to the surface. Of course, Jiraiya was a very persuasive man, so much so that he was even willing to wager a bet, all of his fortune, all that he had, on a deal that she would make with Jiraiya. They would play a game of cards, and the winner would have to do what the loser wanted. For Tsunade, she had been running low on funds, and she knew that Jiraiya, despite his appearance, was very well off. She could take him to the cleaners, take everything he had and leave, and Jiraiya promised that he'd never come back. But if he won, she'd have to come back to the Hidden Leaf and at least consider the offer. It felt like a win-win for Tsunade, and at first, the cards all seemed to be going her way. But whether it be through fate, chance, or just plain bad luck, one by one Tsunade's cards began to fold, and eventually Jiraiya found himself as the winner. Although Tsunade wasn't truly bummed out by this, she couldn't help but tease Jiraiya on one thing. If he had wanted to, he could have asked for anything of her at all, even a date perhaps, but instead he chose to put the needs of the village before anything else. Typical of Jiraiya. Always expected. Soon after, Tsunade would return back to the Hidden Leaf. As she did so, she saw how the village was recovering from Orochimaru's ambush, seeing those who were injured and afflicted. She even took time to stop by the hospital and help out those who she could, using the summoning jutsu and bringing Lady Katsuyu from the Slug Mountains to help aid in the healing process, along with her attendant and former student, Shizune. Before long, Tsunade would be sitting with the village elders, along with Jiraiya, to discuss the matter of the next Hokage. The elders made it very clear it came down to either Jiraiya or Tsunade. One of them would likely have to take up the mantle of the next Hokage. Of course, Jiraiya would point out that he still had his spy network to look after. There was still the threat of the Akatsuki, as well as knowing that they were after Cory. The girl was going to need training. Tsunade would immediately object to this. If there was one thing she would not do, is allow Jiraiya to be in any secluded areas with a young, impressionable girl, given his habits. Jiraiya pushed that he would never do such a thing, and he had already taken to the girl's training once before. But that was besides the point. Tsunade believed that if anyone should train the girl, it should be her. But there was also the matter of keeping Cory on the move. They didn't want the Akatsuki to just stroll into the village knowing she'd be there. And if the Akatsuki were as well informed as Jiraiya thought, then they'd have a way of getting to her if they had that information. So for now, Cory would have to be on the move. And based off of their expectations, the Akatsuki wouldn't be in full form for another 2.5 to maybe 3 years max. That gave them time, but they had to use it wisely. And so, a compromise was made. Tsunade would agree to the terms of becoming the 5th Hokage on one condition. She would be given that time, that 2.5 to 3 years, to travel and train Cory, to train her up to the best of her abilities before taking the position. As Tsunade put it, she believed that she had found someone that could be her swan song. Cory was going to be her last student. Of course, the village elders didn't mind this, but at the same time, they would need someone to serve as interim Hokage. They couldn't just go 2.5 to 3 years without no one in the seat. And that's where Tsunade had the bright idea of putting Jiraiya in that position. Of course, Jiraiya was ready to object, stating that his spy agency required his primary focus, but she would point out that he had a duty to Naruto. Naruto wasn't in danger of the Akatsuki, so if anything, he needed to be trained, especially seeing as how Jiraiya owed it to Minato and Kushina. He couldn't argue with that, but there was still the matter of keeping his connections, to which Tsunade would suggest handing those responsibilities to Kakashi. After all, out of all of the Jonin in the Hidden Leaf, he was the only one among their elites, and who had former experience in the Anbu Black Ops. If anyone could take over Jiraiya's work, it would be him. He was the most suited and the most qualified. And, on top of all things, he had the Sharingan, another added benefit to his power. Jiraiya would have to think this over. Handing over responsibilities to Kakashi for a time might not have seemed so bad. These were Tsunade's conditions if they were going to make her Hokage. And Jiraiya ultimately decided that temporary discomfort for a long-term game had to be the best course of action. And thus, the deal would be made. Jiraiya would serve as the interim Hokage until Tsunade returned with Cory. And, while he was in the village, he would be under obligation to look after and train Naruto, to not only become the best of a shinobi, but to master the power of the beast within him. As for Kakashi, he took to his assignment rather well, although he had his own conditions. If he was going to be leaving and moving about in espionage, he would be bringing Sasuke with him. Of course, the council were a bit worried about this, but with Sasuke being the last of the Uchiha with a Sharingan, Kakashi was the only one suited to train him and look out for him. Plus, Itachi was a member of the Akatsuki as well. If there was a potential of meeting him, then Kakashi would need all the help he could get. And personally, he recommended that Sasuke be put in the best case scenario to help bring in his brother. Of course, many pieces of paperwork would have to be pushed to sign off on this, since technically Sasuke would be on an official mission, if you could even call it that. To justify having Sasuke tag along with Kakashi, he was given the rank of not Chunin, but Jonin, much to Sasuke's surprise. But as Kakashi would put it, this was more than just a mission. This was also going to be Sasuke's training, and he wasn't going to go easy on him. And it wasn't like Sasuke would want that. Of course, Naruto was happy for his friend, although lamented the fact that he and Kori were still stuck at the Genin level. But Kakashi would encourage his students, telling them that with enough training and dedication, they could catch up to Sasuke in time. And just because Sasuke had the rank of Jonin, he had a long way to go before he could really live up to that mantle. And then, of course, there was Tatsu Yamashiro. She had finally decided that now was the time to return back to her homeland, the Land of Iron, to bury her grandfather Mifune, and to take up responsibility as the next leader of the samurai clan. But still, she was grateful for her time in the Leaf Village, and her time with Team 7, however brief. She promised that she would work hard, along with the samurai, and if the Leaf should ever need their help, all they'd have to do was call. Naruto still remembered that day fondly. The day standing at the Konoha gates, as Tsunade, Shizune, and Kori, Kakashi, Sasuke, and Tatsu were all ready to take their leave. The 4 members of Team 7 saying their goodbyes, vowing to get stronger in preparation for what was to come. Naruto would look to Jiraiya, who had a look of worry on his face. Even if he were interim Hokage, he was going to be swamped with a lot of paperwork till then. But he wouldn't be alone, because Naruto, on top of being his student, was going to be his assistant and secretary. Naruto merely rolled his eyes at this, because now the hard work had begun. Six months later, Kakashi and Sasuke make their way to the ruins of the old Uchiha Monument, a former area within the Land of Fire that was home to the Uchiha clan, long since forgotten. Kakashi believed that this would be a good place to start in the leg of their journey. If Sasuke could find anything useful to him regarding his clan, this was the place to do it. As they made their way through the ruins, they would soon find that they were not alone. They had a guest, sitting on a throne, a familiar individual, clad in a black robe with red clouds. Both Sasuke and Kakashi stood on guard. They didn't think that this moment would come so soon. Kakashi warned Sasuke to stay behind him and stay focused. It might be a stretch, but maybe they could take down Itachi. Itachi, however, would raise his hand. "You have no need to worry. I have not come to fight you." "Sorry to say, Itachi," Kakashi would tell him, "but when you're in the presence of a rogue shinobi, S-class at that, you have to stay on guard at all times. No offense." "None taken. I understand. I've come here because there are many truths that need to be revealed." "You mean you're finally going to admit it?" Sasuke would say. "How did you figure it out?" "You're not the one giving the commands here, Itachi. I am. The only thing stopping me from jumping over there and ripping you limb from limb is the fact that you know more than what you've told me. There was someone else there. The night that you..." "You're right. There was someone else." then that means, yes, Kakashi, your old friend Obito Uchiha, or Madara as he goes by, or even Toby, whatever suits him. So, Obito returned to the village and helped you slaughter the Uchiha clan. But why? Why would you do it? I am going to tell you everything, even some things you might not want to know. Things that you will have to understand in time. But you should know this. Everything I've done for the sake of the village. The Akatsuki are much more than you could possibly imagine. I am giving you this information to do with as you wish. But know that in 3 years' time, the Akatsuki will make their move against all Jinchuriki. All Jinchuriki? Kakashi would say. Yes, and not just against the 9 Jinchuriki. They have added a new target to their list. Who? Sasuke would ask. Who is their target? The 10th Jinchuriki, Naruto Uzumaki. This concludes Naruto, King of the Beast. What if Naruto was Swamp Thing? Season 2, Part 8, the Season 2 finale. First and foremost, thank you to everyone as we approach to the end of another season for a series here on Power Core Productions and Podcastings. When I first made this series, I have to say it was probably one of the more unorthodox crossovers I have come up with. And I didn't know how you guys were going to take to it at first with the mashing of the Swamp Thing character with the Naruto world, but I kind of felt like it would play into the series rather well. Just to kind of clarify a few things, with this series, I would say that I'm taking more inspiration in the form of the Boruto series as a whole. I know that some of you have probably wondered why is Sasuke the why is Sasuke the son of Hawk Girl? Why is Starfire, aka Corey from Tamaran, in this series? And that's because I'm playing into the aspect of the Boruto series, especially when it comes to the Otsutsuki clan and how they invade other dimensions, other worlds, to create the chakra fruits and, the 10-tailed seed, things of that nature. So essentially, you could say that this story is kind of like a characters from worlds that were destroyed by the Otsutsuki clan somehow ended up in the Naruto world. So in case it hasn't been made clear at this point, Starfire came from a world that was destroyed by the Otsutsuki clan, but before it was completely destroyed, she ended up getting sent to this world. Same thing with Sasuke's mother, Hawk Girl. She ended up escaping to this world as well. So you could say that we're kind of going to be playing around with the aspects of the Boruto lore along with everything in Naruto when we get into the Shippuden part of the series. I also do want to say that beforehand, when it comes to the anime DC Comics crossover that I'm doing, this series as a whole, I will be doing a second Naruto series. I don't know what it's going to be, don't know what it's even going to be about, but there will be 2 of them, because with this series, we're not going to go into the Boruto portion of the story, if that makes sense, because we're kind of going to cover everything at once. And simply because while I like Boruto, I kind of don't want to have to create a new threat in this world for Boruto to face, simply because I don't think that the Boruto portion of the story will work in this series. So I'm kind of going to take care of it before we get there. But I do like the Boruto story. So if you have any suggestions for a Naruto DC comic kind of like crossover event that I could do, where you could do the story of Naruto, then continue into the Boruto story, something along those lines, then that's also going to be a possibility. But, it's something to think about far into the future, so we'll just consider that when we get there. But all in all, I do want to say thank you. Thank you to everyone who has followed along with this series. If you enjoyed the first 2 seasons, wrapping up the first part of the Naruto story, then thank you so much. I would say that as far as this series is concerned, we will be doing a season 3 and a season 4, and that will wrap up this series as a whole. I want this series to be 4 seasons total, so you could say that in terms of the story, we are halfway there. But all in all, thank you all for your support. Like I always say, can't do it without you. You make the channel grow, you make the core grow, and stay tuned next week for everything that's to come out now and in the future. But that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with Power Core Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time.